I remember doing a presentation early in high school. I was so nervous that I was shaking and I could barely put the words together as I was doing the presentation. After that presentation, I told myself I would never do another presentation again, as the anxiety was so horrible and embarrassing. So I avoided presentations. I'm going to talk to you about my struggle with anxiety, panic attacks, and addictions, and my methods to cope. I've learned 4 things that have helped me to cope that I would like to share with you. They are faith, courage, compassion, and self-care. That presentation in high school had a bad effect on me. Anxiety after that just escalated. I remember in grade 10, the day we got back from the summer, everyone had to say their names in order. This was, and still is, one of my worst fears. The apprehension of saying your name was unbearable because I was never the first one to go. So I had lots of time for the anxiety to build up. I had lots of time to become trapped with no way out. I had lots of time to realize that I could not leave the classroom as I could not speak, and that impending horror was about to happen. Then I would think about how I would be called to speak, and I would naturally try to escape, finding it impossible. And then I would lose control, and this pattern would repeat, and it would escalate until I became frozen. This is one of the worst feelings I've ever felt. After that, there was fear everywhere. Even the smallest of social situations would cause me to go down that path of anxiety. Each time, the path would get stronger, and I would just automatically go down that path for any social situation. I couldn't talk to anyone about it either, as I was afraid of judgment. I felt alone, and eventually I couldn't even go inside the school. After about 2 weeks of not going to the school, I went to the doctor. In about 10 minutes, he told me that I had an anxiety disorder. And he gave me antidepressants and tranquilizers. I think that kind of strengthened that path because now I thought that there was something permanently wrong with me. 10 years later, I went to the naturopath to get off this medication. She helped me taper off the antidepressants successfully, but the tranquilizers, on the other hand, the tranquilizers, I then realized, are as addictive as heroin. The withdrawals from the tranquilizers are anxiety and depression. And I was getting panic attacks from the withdrawal effects. I read stories about people shaking in their beds for weeks during withdrawals. This scared me because I was getting anxiety from the withdrawals, and I found it hard to leave my own house. Thankfully, I had naturopathic help. Let's talk about faith. For 10 years, I was told that I had an anxiety disorder, that I was going to be on this medication for the rest of my life. I went to the naturopath, and for the first time, someone told me that I could get off this medication, that I did not need this medication. This had never occurred to me before because I always thought that I had a disorder. This created a new path in my mind. The naturopath changed my life, and I'll tell you a big factor for this. There's a quote: "Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase." I tried a couple of interns at the naturopath clinic, and eventually I ended up with this one. I'm glad I ended up with this intern. Someone once told me that bonds with other people can happen out of nowhere when you least suspect it. I know this is true from experience. In our first meeting, we were talking about sleep, and I told her that I did not want my bed. The intern asked why, and I said that I wanted more space for my musical instruments. Then we shared our interests in music. She told me to listen to a certain band when we were talking about bands. So I listened to one of their albums. Then I listened to the album again because it was the most wonderful music that I have ever listened to. I must have listened to that album 100 times over the summer. Anyways, I think this created rapport between us. I listened to her advice, and the results were so good that I just did whatever she said from then on. She told me to eat more vegetables, so I ate tons of spinach. She told me to exercise, so I did. I ran every day. The more I listened to her, the better I became. Then she told me to go downtown Toronto to Kensington Market with my ukulele and play it in the park. This was a big one because I kind of had agoraphobia and I did not like walking outside alone at all, especially with the withdrawals. I did though. Do you want to know why? Faith. Let's talk about courage. So I took the GO train and I went downtown and I played my ukulele in the park. It wasn't easy with my withdrawals, but I just did it anyways. Then I realized that I loved Kensington Market. And I went to an open mic she told me about. I went to that open mic every Monday with my ukulele for about 2 months, and then I finally went up on stage and played and sung a song I wrote. They say that courage is being scared to death, but just doing it anyways. I think at that point, I experienced what they meant. I learned that the best way out is through. Let's talk about compassion. With this wisdom, I enrolled in Trent University last September, and I joined about 8 clubs to stay out of my comfort zone through the withdrawals. If I started to feel anxiety, I would just go out of my comfort zone and start talking to people. It was hard, but I just did it anyways. I learned that being open with people and sharing your deepest concerns cause a positive, friendly atmosphere. I would try to focus on the good aspects of people, and I would feel a sense of closeness with everyone. This positivity and compassion would automatically reduce fear for me. I learned that everyone is similar to me. We are all humans who all want happiness. Looking at people in this way caused me to feel not alone and isolated, and it would reduce anxiety for me. Let's talk about self-care. If the best way out is through, then just like going out of my comfort zone to overcome anxiety, what would prevent my depression? A big factor that has helped me with anxiety and avoiding depression that I learned from the naturopath is being active, both mentally and physically. Exercise alone has prevented me from suffering from depression, which is a very common withdrawal symptom. It has been hard to exercise regularly, but sometimes I would feel like I was in 10 times gravity, but I just did it anyways. I cannot express how much exercise has helped me with my mental health. If it wasn't for exercise, I don't think I'd be able to go to school right now. This past year, I've lost about 50 pounds, and I've never felt better. I am fortunate enough to have found options. Psychiatric drugs are not for everyone, and I want people to have the knowledge that there are other options out there, so they will not have to suffer what I am going through. I've just jumped completely off my medication as of December 20th, after 10 years. It's going to take at least a year of bad withdrawals for me to heal. I should probably not, in my condition, be doing the one thing I fear the most: presentations. But I just did it anyways. Thank you.